guest ring.
Oh no, I duplicated my terrace.
Ah, too many heresies.
You can never have too many of them.
I mean, having one would be considered too many.
Disagree.
Well, let's disagree to agree.
What's
Because
agree?
that's how that. It's green without the N.
I mean, N. I don't. I just don't. I simply choose to not.
Oh, I'm so glad that you've chosen this path. I've ordered food and it should actually be here quite quickly because I didn't order it from a Chinese place, which means it should literally be here in about half an hour.
This time he ordered from Australia.
Oh.
Okay. You know what? Let's get our efficiency.
Skydis. You would not believe this, right? But Cat Peasant is in the chat right now.
Where's the end stream button? I have already acknowledged his presence, but you just ignored my acknowledgement of his not being ignoredness.
I think Cat Peasant noticed Cat Peasant as well.
Quick. Let's subdue him.
Oh no.
What's that? Blah. Speedrun time?
I don't know. I'm only paying half attention as per usual. I'm gonna eat a singular Skittle. It's a very big Skittle, by the way. Look at the size of this fucking Skittle.
I've never had Skittles in my life.
They're like tiny. And this one isn't tiny. This is a big Skittle. It's purposely big Skittle.
If you put a rope around your leg, like in the middle, does that count? Is that considered tiny?
Yes. Only if you do it near the knee.
Correct. That's why I said the middle, roughly. Depending on your leg's length. I mean, maybe you have some different proportions.
I don't have legs.
1 Kings 5. Hiram, the king of Tyre, also sent his servants to Solomon, for he heard that they had anointed him king in place. Come on, the stage is yours.
I'll said my bit.
Okay. Anointed him king in place of his daddy. Now Hiram had been a friend to David the entire time. Then Solomon sent to Hiram, saying, "You know the will of my daddy, David, and that he was not able to build a house in the name of the Lord his God is because of the wars that were imminent all around him until the Lord set them under the steps of his feet. But now the Lord my God has given rest to me on all sides, and there is no adversary, nor occurrence of evil. For this reason I intend to build a temple to the name of the Lord my God, just as the Lord spoke to my daddy David, saying, Your son, whom I will set in your place upon your throne, he himself shall build a house to my name. Therefore, order that your servants may cut down for me cedars from Lebanon, and let my servants be with your servants, and then I will give to you for the wages of your servants whatever you will ask. For you know that there is not a man among us, my people, who knows how to cut wood as well as the Sidonians." Therefore, when Hiram had heard the words of Solomon, he rejoiced greatly, and he said, "Blessed be the Lord's guidance this day, who gave to David a very wise son over this numerous people." And Hiram sent to Solomon, saying, "I have heard the things that you would entrust to me, and I will do your whole will concerning the cedar trees and spruce trees. My servants shall bring them down from the Lebanon to the sea, and I will arrange them together as rafts on the sea, as far as the place that you will indicate to me. And I will land them there, and you will take them. And you shall offer to me what is necessary to give food to my house. And so Hiram gave to Solomon cedar trees and spruce trees, in accord with his whole will. Then Solomon offered to Hiram 20,000 core of wheat as food for his house, and 20 core of the purest oil. These things Solomon gave as a tribute to Hiram every year. And the Lord gave wisdom to Solomon, just as he had said to him. That's a reference. That doesn't count, but it's close enough. So, you know what? If you want a reason to drink, you have one.
I don't need a reason to drink.
Good, you're learning. And there was peace between Hiram and Solomon, and
the fact that I exist is the reason to drink.
And the two struck a pact.
I quite like Skittles, actually. I'm sorry, I just needed to interrupt you for something. Go on.
And King Solomon chose workers from all of Glasgow, and the conscription was of 30,000 men. And he sent them into Lebanon, 10,000 each month in turns, so that for 2 months they were in their own houses. And Adoniram was over this type of conscription. And Solomon had 70,000 of those who were carrying burdens, and 80,000 of those who cut stones from the mountain. Aside from the commanders who were over each work in number, 3,300, who gave orders to the people and to those who were doing the work. And the king ordered them to bring great stones, precious stones, for the foundation of the temple, and to square them. And these were shaped by the stoneworkers of Solomon and the stoneworkers of Hiram. The men of Gebel also prepared... Wait, what? And the men of Gebel also prepared the wood and the stones in order to build the house. One Kings 6. Then it happened that in the 480th year after the sons of Glasgow departed from the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of the reign of Solomon over Glasgow, in the month of Ziv, which is the 2nd month, the house of the Lord began to be built. Now the house which King Solomon was building to the Lord was 60 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in length, and 20 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in width, and 30 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in height. And a portico was before the temple of 20 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in length, in accord with the measure of the width of the temple. And it had 10 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters of width before the face of the temple. And he made oblique windows in the temple. And upon the wall of the temple he built panels on all sides. In the walls of the... And upon the wall of the temple he built panels on all sides. In the walls of the house in the walls of the house around the temple and the oracle. I don't know what the sentence, but I'm sure this is a sentence. Why does my preview not work? Okay. Thanks, Terrace.
You're welcome.
And he made side chambers all around. The flooring on the bottom level held 5 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in width, and the middle floor was 6 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in width, and the third floor held 7 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in width. Then he positioned beams on the house all around the outside in such a way that they would not be fastened to the walls of the temple. Now, the house, while it was being built, was made from cut and finished stones, and so neither mallet nor chisel nor any tool of iron was heard in the house while it was being built. The door at the side of the middle section was to the right of the house, and they would ascend along winding stairs to the middle level, and from the middle level to the third level. And he built the house, and he finished it. And he overlaid the house with boards of cedar. And he built a paneling over the entire house, 5 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in height. And he covered the house with cedar wood. And the word of the Lord came to Solomon, saying,
Wait, saying what? To who?
And the word of the Lord came to Solomon, saying,
Alright, that's the... that's the actual... Brilliant. I like how that's the actual verse as well. Like that's it. It just ends at the word saying.
Yeah, so I can stop right there and make you realize that you have to drink.
It's really funny, actually.
Concerning this house which you are building, if you will walk in my precepts and carry out my judgments and keep all my commandments, advancing by them, I will confirm my word to you, which I spoke to your daddy, David. And I will dwell in the midst of the sons of Glasgow, and I will not forsake my people Glasgow. And so Solomon built the house and finished it. Which he already did a few sentences earlier, but I guess he just literally built another one? Welcome to Bible redundancy. And he built the walls of the house. Yeah, that's how you usually build a house. It has walls. On the interior, with panels of cedar from the floor of the house to the top of the walls, and even to the ceiling. Once again, which is usually how you build a house. You have walls that go from the floor to the ceiling. But, I mean, maybe they had different building styles back then? He covered it with cedar wood on the interior, and he overlaid the floor of the house with panels of spruce. And he built panels of cedar of 20 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters, at the back part of the temple, from the floor even to the top. And he made the inner house of the oracles as the Holy of Holies. And the temple itself, before the doors of the oracle, was 40 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters. And the entire house was clothed with cedar on the interior, having its turnings and junctures outfully wrought, with carvings projecting outwards. Everything was clothed with panels of cedar, and no stone at all was able to be seen in the wall. Now he made the oracle in the middle of the house, in the inner part, so that he might station the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord there. And the oracle held 20 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in length, and 20 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in width, and 20 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in height. And he covered and clothed it with the purest gold. Then too he clothed the altar in cedar. Also, the house before the oracle he covered with the purest gold, and he fastened the plates with nails of gold. And there was nothing in the temple that was not covered with gold. Moreover, the entire altar of the oracle he overlaid with gold. And he made in the oracle 2 cherubim of wood and of the olive tree, of 10 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in height. One wing of a cherub was 5 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters, and the other wing of a cherub was 5 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters. That is, having 10 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters, from the summit of one wing even to the summit of the other wing. That is one fucking way to pad with words. There was one wing, it had length X, and then the other wing which had the length X. And then the span of both wings together was 2x. Thanks. Yeah, that's very, very helpful. Likewise, the second cherub was 10 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters. And the measure was equal, and the work was one in the 2 cherubim. That is, one cherub had a height of 10 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters. And similarly, the second cherub. And he stationed the cherubim in the middle of the inner temple, and the cherubim extended their wings, and the wing of the one was touching the wall, and the wing of the second cherub was touching the other wall. But the other wings in the middle of the temple were touching each another. Okay? He also overlaid the cherubim with gold. And all the walls of the temple, all around, he engraved with diverse carvings and turnings. And he made them in cherubims and palm trees and various images, as if these were projecting out and going forth from the wall.
Wall.
Then too, the floor of the house he overlaid with gold within and without. And at the entrance of the oracle he made little doors from wood of the olive tree, with posts of 5 corners. And there were 2 doors from wood of the olive tree, and he carved upon them pictures of cherubim and images of palm trees, and very prominent figures, and he overlaid these with gold. And he covered the cherubim as well as the palm trees and the other things with gold. And he made at the entrance of the temple posts from wood of the olive tree with 4 corners, and 2 doors from wood of the spruce tree on the other side. And each door was double, so it opened by falling upon itself. And he carved cherubim and palm trees and very prominent engravings, and he covered everything with gold plates gold plates, working. What? And he covered everything with gold plates, worked to be perfectly square. And he built the inner atrium with 3 rows of polished stones and 1 row of cedar wood. In the 4th year, the house of the Lord was founded in the month of Ziv. And in the 11th year, in the month of Bull, which is the 8th month, the house was perfected in all its works and in all its equipment. And he built it for 7 years. Just looking ahead, I'm just seeing we have another chapter of fucking building instructions because I just see a lot of brackets.
Oh, no.
Hey, Terrence, you want to play the hardcore drinking version where it's whenever we have 457 millimeters?
See, the problem with that is it usually doesn't appear at all, or it appears every other sentence.
Exactly, that's why it's hardcore. It's like Russian roulette.
I thought they're just playing Russian roulette, thanks.
1 Kings 7. And now Solomon built his own house for 13 years and he brought it to perfection. And he built the house from the forest of Lebanon, 100 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in length, and 50 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in width, and 30 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in height, with 4 walkways between columns of cedar. For he had hewn the cedar trees into columns. And he clothed the entire vaulted room with panels of cedar, and it was supported by 45 columns. Now, 1 row held 15 columns, each positioned opposite another, and looking toward one another with equal spacing between the columns. And above the columns there were square beams equal in all things. And he made a portico of columns, 50 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in length, and 30 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in width, and another portico, facing the greater portico, with columns and crossbeams upon the columns. He also made the portico of the throne, which is the tribunal, and he overlaid it with cedar wood from the floor even to the summit. And in the midst of the portico there was a small house, where he would sit in judgment, similar in workmanship. He also made a house for the daughter of Pharaoh, whom Solomon had taken as a wife, of the same work and type as this portico. All was of precious stones which had been sought by a particular standard and measure, as much within as without, from foundation even to the summit of the walls, and outside even to the great atrium. Now the foundations were of precious stones, great stones of 8 or 10 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters. And above these there were precious stones of equal measure, which had been cut in a manner similar to boards of cedar. And the great atrium was round, with 3 rows of cut stones and 1 row of cut cedar, even as it also was in the interior atrium of the house of the Lord and in the portico of the house. And King Solomon sent and brought Hiram of Tyre, the son of a widowed woman from the tribe of Naphtali, whose daddy was Tyrion, an artisan in brass, and full of wisdom and understanding and knowledge, in order to form every work of brass. Why does Terrace look more annoyed than usual?
I'm just tired. I only came back home like half an hour ago-ish, maybe 40 minutes ago. I did a thing after work and now I have money. But I am also tired because I did more work.
Didn't know you were doing these kinds of services. And when he had gone to King Solomon, he wrought all his work. And he cast 2 columns of brass. Each column was 18 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in height, and a line of 12 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters, encompassed both columns. Also, he made 2 heads of molten brass, which would be set upon the tops of the columns. One head was 5 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in height, and the other head was 5 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters in height. And there was something like a network of chains woven together in a wonderful manner. Both heads of the columns were cast, and 7 rows of little nets traversed one head, and 7 little nets were on the other head. And he finished the columns with 2 rows all around each network, so that these covered the heads which were at the top with pomegranates. And he did in like manner to the second head. Now the heads that were at the top of the columns in the portico of 4 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters, had been fabricated with a work of lilies. And again, there were other heads at the tops of the columns above, in accord with the measure of the column opposite the netting. And there were 200 of the pomegranates in rows around the second head. And he stationed 2 columns in the portico of the temple. And when he had stationed the column on the right, he called its name Jetchen. Similarly, he erected the second column, and he called its name Boaz. And above the tops of the columns, he set a work in the manner of lilies, and the work of the columns was perfected. He also made a molten sea of 10 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters, from brim to brim, rounded on all sides. Its height was 5 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters, and a thin rope of 30 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters, wrapped it all around. And a sculpted work under the brim encircled it for 10 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters, going around the sea. There were 2 rows cast of striated sculptures, and it was standing upon 12 coxswains, of which 3 were looking toward the north, 3 toward the west, and 3 toward the south, and 3 toward the east. And the sea above was over them. And their posteriors were entirely hidden within. And the basin was the thickness of 3/12. And its brim was like the brim of a chalice, or like the outturned petal of a lily. It contained 2,000 baths. Whatever the fuck that might be. And he made 10 bases of brass. Each base was 4 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters, in length, and 4 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters, in width, and 3 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters, in height. And the work itself of the bases was engraved, and there were sculptures between the junctures, and between the little crowns and the edges, there were lions and coxswain and cherubim, similarly in the junctures above. And under the lions and coxswain were something like bands of brass hanging down. And each base had 4 wheels with axles of brass. And at the 4 sides were something like little arms under the cast basin, facing away from one another. Is this the pi equals 3 chapter? I don't know. Also, the mouth of the interior of the basin was at the top of the head, and what was visible outside was of 1 cubit all around. And altogether it had 1 cubit and a half. Wait, what the fuck is a cubit? Didn't we Paris?
Yes.
Didn't we replace cubit?
Yes.
No? No, we did not. Where does it...
Hello.
Cubit. Where's cubit on our replace sheet then? I don't see it.
It sounds like something we'd replace.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but... Qubits! Oh, you replace qubits!
Ah.
But there's now...
Because it always mentioned qubits.
Yeah, now it's 1 singular qubit.
Just a singular qubit.
I'm gonna leave it like that just because fuck you. Now, at the corners of the columns were diverse engravings, and the spaces between the columns were square, not round. And the 4 wheels which were at the 4 corners of the base were joined to one another under the base. The height of 1 wheel held 1 cubit and a half. Stop with the singular cubit. Now, these were the kind of wheels such as are often made for a chariot, and their axles and spokes and tires and centers were all cast. And the 4 little arms which were at each corner of the base were cast and joined together as part of the base itself. And at the summit of the base there was a round stand of 1/2 cubit, for fuck's sakes, fabricated so that the basin could be placed upon it, having its engravings and various sculptures of its own. He also engraved those plates which were of brass. And at the corners were cherubims and lions and palm trees standing out as if in the likeness of a man, so that they seemed not to be engraved, but placed adjacent on all sides. In this manner he made 10 bases with the same casting and measure, and very similar engravings. He also made 10 hand basins of brass. 1 hand basin contained 4 baths, and was 4 times 18 inches, 457 millimeters. In each basin he set up on a base, which is 10 bases. Finish homework. Good luck. Might be back. Who knows? And he stationed the 10 bases, 5 to the right side of the temple and 5 to the left side. 5 to the left. And the sea he placed to the right side of the temple, opposite the east toward the south. Then Hiram made cooking pots and trays and small hooks, and he completed all the work of King Solomon in the temple of the Lord. The 2 columns and the 2 cords of the heads over the tops of the columns, and the networks which covered the 2 cords that were above the tops of the columns, and the 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks, 2 turnings of pomegranates for each network in order to cover the cords of the heads, which were above the tops of the columns, and the 10 bases and the 10 bases and the 10 bases on the basins on the bases, and the 1 sea and the 12 coxen under the sea, and the cooking pots and the trays and the small hooks. All of the items that Hiram made for King Solomon for the house of the Lord were of gold and brass. In the open regions near Jordan, the king cast these in the clay soil between Succoth and Zarethan. And Solomon positioned all the items. But because of its exceedingly great amount, the brass was not weighed. And Solomon made all the furniture for the house of the Lord, the altar of gold, and the table of gold upon which the bread of the presence would be placed. Ah, yes, remember the bread of the presence? That's a blast from the past. Okay, you don't. Fine.
Yeah, I do vaguely actually. Yeah.
As opposed to the bread from.
I don't remember in what context at all, but I do vaguely remember.
It was like second or third book. Bread. I just remember that I said as opposed to the bread of the past. That's what matters. I made a bad pun, and I remembered.
Nice.
And the gold lampstands, 5 to the right, 5 to the left, opposite the oracle of pure gold. And likenesses of lily blossoms with lamps above them of gold, and gold tongs, and water pots, and little forks, and bowls, and little mortars, and censers of the purest gold. Did they have way too much gold back then? And holy fucking shit, this place must be so goddamn tacky. Ah, goddamn. Everything is just made of gold. What the fuck? And the hinges of the door for the interior house of the Holy of Holies, and for the doors of the house of the temple, which were of gold. And Solomon perfected all the work that he was doing in the house of the Lord. And he brought in the things that his daddy, David, had sanctified, the silver and the gold and the vessels, and he stored these in the treasuries of the house of the Lord. I don't like this book.
I don't either.
I'm gonna drink, fuck you.
Oh yeah, good idea.
1 Kings 8. Then all those greater by birth of Glasgow, with the leaders of the tribes and the rulers of the families of the sons of Glasgow, gathered together before King Solomon at Jerusalem, so that they might carry the ark of the covenant of the Lord from the city of David, that is from Zion. And all of Glasgow assembled before King Solomon on the solemn day in the month of Ethanim, which is the 7th month. Hey, soon we can make a calendar, soon we'll know all the months. And all the elders of Glasgow arrived, and the priests took up the ark. And they carried the ark of the Lord, and the skytis tent of the covenant, and all the vessels of the sanctuary which were in the skytis tent. And the priests and the Levites carried these. Then King Solomon and the entire multitude of Glasgow who had assembled before him advanced with him before the ark, and they immolated sheep and oxen, which could not be numbered or estimated. And the priests brought the ark of the covenant of the Lord to its place and into the oracle of the temple in the Holy of Holies under the wings of the cherubim. For indeed, the cherubim extended their wings over the place of the ark, and they protected the ark and its bars from above. But since the bars projected outward, their ends were visible from without in the sanctuary before the oracle. But they were not visible farther outward, and they have been in that place even to the present day. Now, inside the ark there was nothing other than 2 tablets of stone, which Osmosis had placed in it at Horeb, when the Lord formed a covenant with the sons of Glasgow when they departed from the land of Egypt. Ah, yes, remember the 3 tablets which then turned into 2? That took you way too long.
That's because I'm only half listening.
I know.
My foot is on its way.
Then it happened that when the priests had exited from the sanctuary, a cloud filled the house of the Lord. And the priests were unable to stand and minister because of the cloud. I just imagine that somebody comes in there and tries to sell them on cloud offerings. Like, hey, move all your riches to the cloud, and you can manage them from anywhere. For the glory of the Lord had filled the house of the Lord. Then Solomon said, The Lord has said that he would dwell in a cloud. Building, I have built a house as your dwelling place, your most firm throne forever. And the king turned his face and he blessed the entire assembly of Glasgow, for the entire assembly of Glasgow was standing. And Solomon said, Blessed is the Lord, the Skyters of Glasgow, who spoke with his mouth to my daddy, David, and who, with his own hands, has perfected it, saying, From the day when I led my people Glasgow away from Egypt, I did not choose any city out of all the tribes of Glasgow so that a house would be built, so that my name might be there. Instead, I chose David to be over my people Glasgow. And my daddy David wanted to build a house to the name of the Lord, the Skyters of Glasgow. But the Lord said to my daddy David,
I'm gonna drink anyway.
Yeah, you better do. I'm trying to figure out if this counts as bragging about what was. No, it's complaining, right? Never mind. Lord said to my daddy, David, Since you have planned in your heart to build a house to my name, you have done well by considering this plan in your mind. Yet truly you shall not build a house for me. Instead, your son, who shall go forth from your loins, he himself shall build a house to my name. The Lord has confirmed his word which he spoke. And so I stand in the place of my daddy, David, and I sit upon the throne of Glasgow, just as the Lord said. And I have built a house to the name of the Lord, the Skyters of Glasgow, and there I have appointed a place for the ark, in which is the covenant of the Lord that he struck with our daddies when they went forth from the land of Egypt. Move all yours to Azure so you can light it on fire. What? I haven't worked with Azure. Then Solomon stood before the altar of the Lord in the sight of the assembly of Glasgow, and he extended his hands toward heaven. And he said, Lord Skyters of Glasgow, there is no Skyters like you in heaven above, nor on the earth below. You preserve covenant and mercy with your servants who walk before you with all their heart. You have fulfilled for your servant David, my daddy, that which you said to him. With your mouth you spoke, and with your hands you completed. Just this day proves. Now therefore, O large Skyters of Glasgow, fulfill for your servant David, my daddy, that which you spoke to him, saying, There shall not be taken away from you a man before me, who may sit upon the throne of Glasgow, if only your sons will guard their way, so that they walk before me, just as you have walked in my sight. And now, O large Skyters of Glasgow, establish your words, which you spoke to your servant, David, my daddy. Is it then to be understood that truly Skyters would dwell upon the earth? For if heaven and the heavens of heaven are not able to contain you, how much less is this house, which I have built? Yet look with favor upon the prayers of your servant and upon his petitions, O Lord, my Skyters. Listen to the hymn and the prayer which your servant prays before you this day, so that your eyes may be open over this house night and day, over the house about which you said, My name shall be there, so that you may heed the prayer that your servant is praying in this place to you. So may you heed the supplication of your servant and of your people Glasgow, whatever they will pray for in this place, and so may you heed them in your dwelling place in heaven. And when you heed, you will be gracious. But if any man sins against his neighbor, and he has any kind of an oath by which he is bound, and he arrives because of the oath before your altar in the house, and you will hear in heaven, and you will act and judge your servants, condemning the impious, and repaying his own way upon his own head, but justifying the just, and rewarding him in accord with his justice. And if your people Glasgow will have fled from their enemies because they have sinned against you, and doing penance and confessing to your name, shall arrive and pray and petition you in this house, listen in heaven, and forgive the sin of your people Glasgow, and lead them back to the land which you gave to their daddies.
Hold on, sustenance.
I heard knocking.
Sustenance.
I'll just hold on to my chin. I don't know. He told me to hold on. What's on fire most of the time? Nice. Well, so it's a little awkward. He ordered haggis. Sure he did. Maybe he ordered PS1 Hagrid.
I've acquired sustenance.
Can I let go now?
Oh yeah, you can let go now. Okay, I'm back. Now that I'm back, you can let go.
Hi, bag. And if the heavens have closed so that there is no rain because of their sins, and they, praying in this place, shall do penance to your name, and shall be converted from their sins by occasion of their afflictions, hear them from heaven, and forgive the sins of your servants and of your people Glasgow. What a fucking speech. And reveal to them the good way along which they should walk, and grant rain upon your land, which you have given to your people as a possession. Then, if famine rises over the land, or pestilence, or corrupt air, or blight, or locust, or mildew, or if their enemies afflict them, if their enemy afflicts them, besieging the gates, or any harm, or infirmity, or whatever curse, or divine intervention may happen to any man among sus, your people Glasgow, if anyone understands, having been wounded in his heart, and if he will have extended his hands in this house, you will hear in heaven, in your dwelling place, and you will forgive. And you will act so that you give to each one in accord with his own ways, just as you see in his heart, for you alone know the heart of all the sons of men. So may they fear you all the days that they live upon the face of the land, which... The hell is this vomiting? Which you have given to our daddies. Moreover, the foreigner too, who is not of your people, of your people Glasgow, when he will have arrived from a distant land because of your name, for they shall hear about the great name and your strong hand, and your outstretched arm everywhere. So when he arrives and prays in this place, you will listen in heaven, in the firmament of your dwelling place. And you will do all the things for which that foreigner will have called upon you. So may all the people of the earth learn to fear your name, just as your people Glasgow do. And so may they show that your name has been invoked over this house which I have built. And if your people have gone out to war against their enemies alone, whatever way you will send them, they shall pray to you in the direction of the city which you have chosen, and toward the house which I have built to your name. And you will hear in heaven their prayers and their petitions, and you will accomplish judgment for them. But if they sin against you, for there is no man who does not sin, and you, being angry, deliver them to their enemies, and they will have been led away as captives to the land of their enemies, whether far or near. And if they do penance in their heart, and in the place of captivity, and having been converted, make supplications to you in their captivity, saying, we have sinned, we acted unjustly, we committed impiety. And they return to you with all their heart and all their soul in the land of their enemies, to which they have been led away as captives. And if they pray to you in the direction of their land, which you gave to their daddies, and of the city which you have chosen, of the temple which I have built to your name, you will hear in heaven, in the firmament of your throne, their prayers and their petitions. And you will accomplish their judgment, and you will forgive your people who have sinned against you, and all their iniquities by which they have transgressed against you. And you will grant them mercy in the sight of those who have made them captive, so that they may take pity on them. For they are your people, and your inheritance, whom you have led away from the land of Egypt, from the midst of the furnace of iron. So may your eyes be open to the supplication of your servant, and of your servant and of your people Glasgow, and so may you heed them in all the things about which they will call upon you, for you have separated them yourself as an inheritance from amongst us, the peoples of the earth, just as you spoke by Moses, your servant, when you led your daddy away from Egypt. When you led our daddies away from Egypt, O Lord.
Did they ever stop talking about the whole leading from Egypt thing, or is that just like an ongoing problem?
I am the Lord your guidance.
Understandable. Have a nice day.
PS1 Hagrid is a beautiful soul. Correct. You may stub your toe, then the Lord will join you in hell. What? It was a pre-written speech that said your name and they just read it verbatim. No, it's just terrible and torture. And it happened that when Solomon had completed praying this entire prayer and supplication to the Lord, he rose up from the side of the Lord, from the side of the altar of the Lord, for he had fixed both knees upon the ground, and he had extended his hands toward heaven. Then he stood and blessed the entire assembly of Glasgow in a great voice, saying, "Blessed is the Lord who has given rest to his people Glasgow in accord with all that he said. Not even one word out of all good things that he spoke by his servant Moses has fallen away. May the Lord our guidance be with us, just as he was with our daddies, not abandoning us and not rejecting us. But may he incline our hearts to himself, so that we may walk in all his ways and keep his commandments and his ceremonies and whatever judgments he commanded to our daddies. And may these words, may these my words by which I have prayed before the Lord be near to the Lord our guidance day and night, so that he may accomplish judgment for his servant and for his people Glasgow throughout each day. So may all the peoples of the earth know that the Lord himself is guidance, and there is no other beside him. Also may our hearts be perfect with the Lord our guidance, so that we may walk in his decrees and keep his commandments, as also on this day." Then the king and all of Glasgow with him immolated victims before the Lord. And Solomon slew sacrifices of peace offerings which he immolated to the Lord. 22,000 cocks, holy fucking shit, that is a slaughter, and 20,100 sheep. And the king and all the sons of Glasgow dedicated the temple of the Lord.
This was really nice, by the way.
I wonder how this works. Like, why is it always such a specific number? Like, do they always slay, like, okay, let's slay 1,000, and then
did they count?
And then afterwards, like, fuck, that's 1,005. All right, I guess we'll go to 1,100. And they just slay another 95. I don't fucking know.
Maybe they just killed them and then they count the dead bodies, and then it just so happens to be a nice round number.
What's the fucking what is it in English? Hold on. That sounds an awful lot like divine dispensation.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, same.
Nice.
On that day, the king sanctified. On that day, the king sanctified the middle of the atrium, which was before the house of the Lord. For in that place he offered holocaust and sacrifice, and the fat of peace offerings. For the bronze altar, which was before the Lord, was too small and was not able to hold the holocaust and the sacrifice and the fat of the peace offerings. Then Solomon made, at that time, a celebratory festival, and all of Glasgow with him, a great multitude from the entrance of Hamath to the river of Egypt, in the sight of the Lord our guidance, for 7 days plus 7 days. That is 14 days. Excuse me.
Origin of maths, question mark.
This is some base math right here.
Based math.
That as well. And on the 8th day he dismissed the people, and blessing the king they set out for their tents, rejoicing and cheerful in their heart over all the good things that the Lord had done for his servant David and for his people Glasgow. So what you got there?
I've got baked potato with cheese. Like just the one potato, but it's really fucking big.
And then you also have...
I also have a wrap with a lot of meat. Now, like a tortilla wrap. With like an
I get
alarming
it.
quantity of meat.
You specifically ordered this for this stream, just so you can hold it up when you're done and you're like, that's a wrap. I know you weren't thinking of that, but now you are, and you're so fucking welcome for that idea.
Yeah, I'm not using it. Fuck you.
I know. That's why I said it specifically, just so you wouldn't out of spite.
Well,
they keep trying to one up each
I
other.
see what you did there. I'm still not doing it.
One King's 9. Now it happened that when Solomon had perfected the building of the house of the Lord and the king's house, and all that he had desired and had willed to do, the Lord appeared to him a second time, just as he had appeared to him at Gibeon Place. And the Lord said to him...
Oh yeah, Mr. Krabs. The Lord said to him, "You're an alcoholic, Harry."
I'm gonna stick my dick in the alcoholic. I mean, what?
Ooh.
I have heard your prayer and your petition which you prayed before me. I have sanctified this house which you have built so that I may place my name there forever, and so that my eyes and my heart will be there for all days. Also, if you will walk before me just as your daddy walked, in simplicity of heart and in equity, and you do all that I have instructed to you, and you keep my laws and my judgments, then I will set the throne of your kingdom over Glasgow forever, just as I promised to your daddy, David, saying, a man from your stock shall not be taken away from the throne of Glasgow. But if you and your sons, wandering, will have turned away, not following me, and not keeping my commandments and my ceremonies, which I have proposed to you, but instead go away and serve strange goddesses and adore them, then I will take away Glasgow from the face of the land which I have given to them. And the temple which I have sanctified to my name I will cast out from my sight. And Glasgow will be a proverb and a parable among all the peoples. And this house will become an example. Anyone who passes by it will be stupefied, and he will hiss and say, why has the Lord acted in this way to this land and to this house? And they will respond, because they abandoned their Lord Skyters, who led their daddies away from the land of Egypt, and they followed strange Skytesses, and they adored them and served them. For this reason the Lord let all this evil over them. Yeah, that's it. Like anyone going by will be like, oh, why is this abandoned? And then someone else will just be like, because they abandoned their Lord who led them away from Egypt. Because just everybody knows that they were led away from Egypt. It's just common knowledge.
I don't like that common knowledge.
It's canon now, I'm sorry. That's the reality we're living in.
Well, if there's a cannon, can we fire it?
We can fire me, and you can do this by yourself.
I don't know if I have the mental capacity to even remember to do it. Never mind doing it.
You definitely don't. And then when 20 years were fulfilled after Solomon had built the two houses, that is, the house of the Lord and the house of the king, Hiram, the king of Tyre, having supplied Solomon with cedar wood and spruce wood and gold in accord with all that he needed, then Solomon gave Hiram 20 towns in the land of Galilee. And Hiram went out of Tyre so that he might view the towns that Solomon had given to him, and they did not please him. Rip me, what? And he said, are these the cities that you have given to me, brother? And he called them.
How do you not understand what Cap hasn't said? That's a really funny joke right there. Because you said fire me.
But that doesn't mean rip.
Well, but he means fired, so rip me. Poor me. What do you do to deserve this kind of treatment?
And he called them the land of Cabul. even to this day. And Hiram sent to King Solomon 120 talents of gold. This was the sum of the expenses that King Solomon offered for the building of the house of the Lord and his own house, and for Millo, and the wall of Jerusalem, and Hazor, and Megiddo, and Gezer. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, ascended and seized Gezer, and he burned it with fire. And he put to death, with one F, the Canaanite who was living in the city, and he gave it as a dowry for his daughter, the wife of Solomon. Therefore, Solomon built up Gezer and Lower Beth Horon and Baalath and Palmyra in the land of the wilderness. And all the towns which belonged to him and which were without walls, he walled, along with the cities of the chariots and the cities of the horsemen, and whatever was pleasing to him, that he might build in Jerusalem and in Lebanon and in the entire land of his dominion.
Pleasing horsemen.
Ooh.
That's for the after show.
All the people who had remained of the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Walmart branch Jesusites, who were not of the sons of Glasgow, their sons who had remained in the land, namely those whom the sons of Glasgow had not been able to destroy, Solomon made tributary even to this day. But from the sons of Glasgow, Solomon did not appoint anyone at all to serve except the men of war, and his ministers and leaders and commanders and the overseers of the chariots and horses. Now there were 550 leaders in the first place over all the works of Solomon, and they had people subject to them, and these were given orders for the appointed works.
Wow.
Just like how it says, Solomon did not appoint anyone at all to serve, except for the few leaders, and then those leaders had people below them who they were commanding. So he totally had people serving, but let's just pretend he didn't.
We got no one serving him but the people that were serving him. Isn't that clear? Come on. Pretty fucking obvious.
And the daughter of Pharaoh went up from the city of David to her house, which Solomon had built for her. Then he built up Millo. Also, 3 times each year, Solomon offered holocausts and victims of peace offerings upon the altar that he had built to the Lord, and he burned incense before the Lord. And then, the temple was perfected. And King Solomon made a navy at Ezion Geber, which is beside Eloth, on the shores of the Red Sea, in the land of Idom Ea. It's in the Bible. And Hiram sent his servants to that navy, the sailors, and those knowledgeable about the sea, with the servants of Solomon. And when they had gone to Ophir, taking from their 420 talents of gold, they brought it to King Solomon. Is there anything you would like to say, Terrace?
It's in the Bible.
No, there was only one valid response to that. And you didn't choose it. The valid response was games, games, games. It's in the games.
Games.
No, games.
Gay.
A little shorter. Games, games, games. It's in the games.
Gay aims.
No, stop being gay. Not okay.
Oh, what are you gay?
It's not okay. Have you not read the Bible?
It's okay to be gay.
No, it is not.
There's a whole song about it. It's fine.
Oh, no.
Your mum gay.
May the Lord smite you down. Or Dota you down. Or lol you down.
Oh.
1 Kings 10.
Inconvenience.
And then too, the Queen of Sheba, having heard that of the fame of Solomon in the name of the Lord, arrived to test him with enigmas. Or better than to test him with enemas. And entering into Jerusalem with a great retinue, and with riches, and with camels carrying aromatics, and with an exceedingly great quantity of gold and precious stones, she went to King Solomon. Do you need a moment, Terrace?
I need a lot more than just a moment, but keep going. 1 moment just isn't going to be enough.
And he spoke to him in all And she spoke to him all that she held in her heart. And Solomon taught her in all the words that she had proposed to him. There was not any word which was able to be hidden from the king, or which he did not answer for her. Then, when the queen of Sheba saw all the wisdom of Solomon and the house he had built, and the food of his table, and the dwelling places of his servants, and the roles of his ministers, and their apparel, and the cupbearers, and the holocaust that he was offering in the house of the Lord, she no longer had any spirit in her. Okay. And she said to the king, "The word is true, which I have heard in my own land about your words and your wisdom. But I did not believe those who explained it to me until I went myself and saw it with my own eyes. And I have discovered that the half of it has not been told to me. Your wisdom and works are greater than the response I have heard. Blessed are your men, and blessed are your servants who stand before you always, and who hear your wisdom. Blessed is the Lord your Skytis, whom you have greatly pleased, and who has placed upon you the throne of Glasgow. For the Lord loves Glasgow forever, and he has appointed you as king, so that you may accomplish judgment and justice." I am really not, but you should know that. Good night, cat peasant, and thank you for your contributions, Paris.
That's what I do.
Then she gave the king 120 talents of gold and an exceedingly rare amount of aromatics and precious stones. No greater quantity of aromatics was ever again brought forth as these, which the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Then too, the navy of Hiram, which carried gold from Ophir, brought an exceedingly great quantity of thyine wood and precious stones from Ophir. And the king made from the thyine wood the posts of the house of the Lord and of the house of the king, and citharas and lyres for the musicians. No thyine trees of this kind were ever again brought forth or seen, even to the present day. It's like a unicorn. Then King Solomon gave the queen of Sheba all that she desired and requested of him, aside from what he himself had offered to her from his royal bounty. And she returned and went away to her own land with her servants. Now the weight of the gold that was brought to Solomon each year was 666 talents of gold. Aside from what was brought to him by the men who were over the tributes, and by the merchants, and by those selling every kind of small item, and by all the kings of Arabia, and by the rulers of the land. 666. Is this going to be relevant at some point?
I'm sure it won't. It seems like such a...
But it's 666.
Nondescript. It seems like such a nondescript number. I'm sure it can't mean anything bad at any point.
You know, maybe throughout this chapter he will just... These 666 talents will be his downfall. And that's why it's the number of the devil. Also first mention of Arabia, I think. Also, King Solomon made 200 large shields from the purest gold. He dispensed 600 shekels of gold from the layers of one shield, and for the 300 crescent-shaped shields of tested gold, there were 300 minas of gold covering one shield. And the king placed these in the house of the forest of Lebanon. Also, King Solomon made a great throne from ivory, and he clothed it with a great quantity of red gold. What the fuck is red gold?
Yes.
Red gold. Red gold is an alloy with at least one other metal, e.g. copper. Oh, okay. The throne had 6 steps. What are you doing, throne? And the summit of the throne was rounded in the back section, and there were 2 hands on one side and on the other, holding the seat. And 2 lines were standing beside each hand, with 12 little lines standing upon the 6 steps, one on one side and the other. No similar work has been made ever in any kingdom. Moreover, all the vessels from which King Solomon would drink were of gold. And all the items in the house of the forest of the Lebanon were of the purest gold. There was no silver, nor was any accounting made of silver in the days of Solomon, for the navy of the king, once every 3 years, went with the navy of Hiram by sea to Tarshish, bringing from there gold and silver and elephant tusks and primates and peacocks. And so King Solomon was magnified above all the kings of the earth in riches and in wisdom. And all the earth desired to see the face of Solomon, so as to hear his wisdom, which Skytus had granted to his heart. And each one brought him gifts, vessels of silver and of gold, clothing and weapons of war, as well as aromatics, horses and mules throughout each year. And Solomon gathered together the chariots and horse seamen. And he had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horse seamen. And he placed them in the walled cities, and with And he placed them in the walled cities and with the king at Jerusalem.
Wow.
But he is the king, huh? And he caused silver to be as abundant in Jerusalem as stones, and he supplied a multitude of cedars like the sycamores that grow in the plains. And horses were brought for Solomon from Egypt and from Kew. For the merchants of the kings were buying these from Kew. And they paid out the established price. Now a 4-horse chariot would be sent from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150. And in this manner all the kings of the Hittites of Syria were selling horses. Okay? Question mark? 1 Kings 11. But King Solomon loved many foreign women, including the daughter of Pharaoh, and women of Moab, and of Ammon, and of Idom, EA. It's in the Bible. And of Sidon, and of the Hittites. These were of the nations about whom the Lord said to the sons of Glasgow, "You shall not enter to them, and none of them shall enter to any one of yours, for they will most certainly turn aside your heart, so that you will follow their skytices." And yet, to these Solomon was joined with a greatly inflamed love. And for him, there were 700 wives, as if they were queens, and 300 concubines. What the fuck? My man's getting some puss. Holy shit. And the women turned aside his heart. And when now he was old, his heart was perverted by the women, so that he followed strange skytices. And his heart was not perfect with the Lord his skytis, as was the heart of his daddy, David. For Solomon worshipped Ashtoreth, the skytistess of the Sidonians, and Milcom, the idol of the Amorites.
Skytistess?
No, skytistess.
No. That's so cursed. That is actually incredibly cursed. Thanks.
You are so welcome for that. You literally did this to yourself.
I kind of did, yeah.
You most literally did this to yourself. I 100% remember that this was your idea. I had the idea with the daddy. You had the idea with the skytis. And Solomon did what was not pleasing in the sight of the Lord, and he did not continue to follow the Lord, as his daddy David did. Then Solomon built a shrine for Chemosh, the idol of Moab, on the mount that is opposite Jerusalem, and for Milcom, the idol of the sons of Ammon. And he acted in this manner for all his foreign. And he acted in this manner for all his foreign wives who were burning.
I'm sorry, continue.
And he acted in this manner for all his foreign wives who were burning incense and immolating to their skytices. And so the Lord became angry with Solomon, because his mind had been turned away from the Lord, the Skytis of Glasgow, who appeared to him twice, and who had instructed him about this matter, lest he follow strange Skytises. But he did not observe what the Lord commanded to him. And so the Lord said to Solomon, because you have this with you, and because you have not kept my covenant and my precept which I commanded to you, I will tear apart your kingdom, and I will give it to your servant. Yet truly, I will not do it in your days, for the sake of your daddy, David. From the hand of your son I will tear it away. Neither will I take away the whole kingdom. Instead, I will grant one tribe to your son, for the sake of David, my servant, and Jerusalem, which I have chosen. I mean, yeah, whatever, his children. I mean, he's dead. He doesn't care then. Clearly. Then the Lord raised up an adversary to Solomon, Hadad of Idom Ea. It's in the Bible. From an offspring of the king who was in Idom Ea. It's in the Bible. For when David was in Idom Ea. It's in the Bible. Joab, the leader of the military, had ascended to bury those who had been killed. And he killed every male in Idom Ea. It's in the Bible. And Joab remained in that place for 6 months with all of Glasgow until he had put to death with one F every male in Idom Ea. It's in the Bible. Then Hadad fled, he and some men of Idom Ea. It's in the Bible. From among us, the servants of his daddy with him, so that he might enter into Egypt. But Hadad was then a little boy. And when they had risen up from Midian, they went into Paran, and they took with them some men from Paran. And they went into Egypt to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And he gave him a house, and he appointed food for him, and he assigned land to him. And Hadad found great favor before Pharaoh, so much so that he gave to him as wife his sister, the sister of his own wife, Queen Tapenes. No, I'm not making this up. This is... She is very much called Tapenes.
Nice.
Unless you have a better proposition, because how the fuck are you supposed to pronounce this?
Just call him the penis.
It's just they knew about the spam filters back then. Holy shit.
Oh, that's really cool.
You know what? That one just by itself goes into the best of. Fucking Queen Tapenes.
Whack.
And the sister of Tapenes bore to him a son, Genubath. And Tapenes raised him in the house of Pharaoh. Genubath was living with Pharaoh and his sons. And when Hadad had heard in Egypt that David had slept with his daddies, and that Joab, the leader of the military, had died, he said to Pharaoh, "Release me, so that I may go to my own land." And Pharaoh said to him, "But what is lacking to you with me, so that you would seek to go to your own land?" But he responded, "Nothing. Yet I beg you that you may release me." Also, Skytis raised up against him an adversary, Rezon, the son of Eliada, who had fled from his lord, Hadad-Ezer, the king of Zobah. And he gathered together men against him, and when David put those of Zobah to death with one F, he became a leader of robbers. And they went away to Damascus, and they lived there. And they appointed him to be king of Damascus. And he was an adversary to Glasgow during all the days of Solomon. And such is the evil of Hadad and of his hatred against Glasgow. And he reigned in Syria. Also, there was Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephraimite from Zerida, a servant of Solomon, whose mother was named Zeruiah, a widowed woman. He lifted up his hand against the king. And this is the reason for his rebellion against him: that Solomon built up Millo, and that he filled filled in a deep hole in the city of David, his daddy. Okay. Now Jeroboam was a valiant and powerful man, and perceiving the young man to be ingenious and industrious, Solomon appointed him as first ruler over the tributes of the entire house of Joseph. And it happened in that time that Jeroboam departed from Jerusalem, and the prophet Ahijah the Shilonite, wearing with a new cloak, found him on the way. And the two were alone in the field, and taking his new cloak, with which he was covered, Ahijah tore it into 12 parts. And he said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 pieces for yourself, for thus says the Lord, the skies of Glasgow. Behold,
No.
I will tear the kingdom from you. God damn it! I will tear the kingdom from the hand of Solomon, and I will give to you 10 tribes. Yet one tribe shall remain with him for the sake of my servant David, as well as Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Glasgow. For he has abandoned me, and he has adored Ashtaroth, the skytistess of the Sidonians, and Chemosh, the skytess of Moab, and Milcom, the skytess of the sons of Ammon." Dude, don't they have an entire sitcom around Milcom? Isn't that like Milcom in the Middle?
Fuck off. I'll fucking milk you in the middle.
And not in the middle of this stream, Terrace. That's for the other stream later. And he has not walked in my ways, so that he would do justice before me, and so that he would carry out my precepts and judgments, as his daddy David did. But I will not take the entire kingdom from his hand. Instead, I will establish him as a ruler during all the days of his life, for the sake of my servant David, whom I chose, who kept my commandments and my precepts. But I will take away the kingdom from the hand of his son, and I will give to you 10 tribes. Then to his son I will give 1 tribe, so that there may remain a lamp for my servant David before me all days in Jerusalem, in the city which I have chosen, so that my name would be there. And I will take you up, and you shall reign over all that your soul desires, and you shall be king over Glasgow. Therefore, if you will listen to all that I will command you, and if you will walk in my ways, and do what is right in my sight, keeping my commandments and my precepts just as my servant David did, then I will be with you, and I will build for you a faithful house in the way that I built a house for David, and I will deliver Glasgow to you. And I will afflict the offspring of David over this, but truly not for all days. Therefore, Solomon wanted to kill Jeroboam. But he rose up and fled away to Egypt, to Shishak, the king of Egypt. Wait, Shishak, the king of Egypt? But I thought it was Pharaoh. Huh?
Ah.
And he was in Egypt until the death, with 1 F, of Solomon. Now the rest of the words of Solomon, and all that he did, and his wisdom, behold. And these are all written in the book of the words of the days of Solomon. And the days that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all of Glasgow were 40 years. And Solomon slept with his daddies, and he was buried in the city of David, his daddy. And Rehoboam, his son, reigned in his place. Just want to point out how incredibly reasonable the Bible is. It's like, hey, you fucked up. So I'm not going to punish you, but I'll punish your son instead. So while you're still alive, you will remain king, but as soon as you're dead, I will take your kingdom away from your son.
Wow, literally fucked that guy in a particular moment. That is
Eternal sin or whatever it's called. Yeah, just your parents fucked up and now you get owned.
Wow.
Very reasonable, as per usual.
That we're all fucked now because someone at some point in our long family tree has fucked up.
Family tree? More like family circle. Haha, got him. I mean, what?
Incest.
One king's
Incest.
one king's incest.
Twincest.
One king's 12. Then Rehoboam went to Shechem, for in that place all of Glasgow had gathered to appoint him as king. Yet truly, Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, while he was still in Egypt as a fugitive from the face of King Solomon, hearing of his death, with one F, returned from Egypt. And they sent and called him. Therefore Jeroboam went, the entire multitude of Glasgow, and they spoke to Rehoboam, saying, Your daddy imposed a very harsh yoke upon us. And so you should now take away a little from the very harsh rule of your daddy and from his very grievous yoke which he imposed upon us, and we will serve you. And he said to them, Go away. Until the third day, and then return to me.
Just fuck off.
Let's literally just come back later. Fuck off right now. When the people had gone away, King Rehoboam took counsel with the elders who had assisted before his daddy Solomon while he was still living, and he said, What counsel do you give to me, so that I may respond to this people? And they said to him, If today you will obey and serve this people, and yield to their petition, and if you will speak lenient words to them, they will be your servants for all days. But he abandoned the counsel of the old men which they had given to him, and he consulted the young men who had been raised with him, and who were assisting him. And he said to them, What counsel do you give to me, so that I may respond to this people who said to me, Make light the yoke that your daddy imposed upon us? And the young men who had been raised with him said, You shall speak in this way
to the one man.
Si, senor. You shall speak in this way to this people who have spoken to you, saying, Your daddy weighed down our yoke, you should relieve us. You shall say this to them, My little finger is thicker than the back of my daddy. And now my daddy placed a heavy yoke upon you, but I will add more upon your yoke.
Don't just skip through that really fucking
My daddy
line.
cut you with whips, but I will beat you with scorpions.
What the fuck is going on? BDSM question mark?
I can tell you what's going on. The new best of is going on. My little finger is thicker than the back of your daddy.
No, I mean that's already fucking hilarious.
AKA, I'm a fat fuck.
Fuck DM.
I will beat you with scorpions. I mean, that's a fucking boss move. Literally just...
That is, yeah.
What the...
Yeah, I'm quite impressed actually.
That might just become the title for this. I will beat you with scorpions. I mean, thumbnail, just a boxer, but instead of boxing gloves, it's fucking scorpions on his hands.
Just like a few really poorly cropped JPEGs of scorpions on a fucking boxing glove.
It's the KGB, the KGS, the killing gloves of scorpion. God damn it, I ruined it. Therefore, Jeroboam and all the people went to Rehoboam on the third day, just as the king had spoken, saying, Return to me on the third day. And the king responded to the people harshly, leaving behind the counsel of the elders that they had given to him. And he spoke to them according to the counsel of the young men, saying, My daddy weighed down your yoke, but I will add more to your yoke. My daddy cut you with whips, but I will beat you with scorpions. And the king did not acquiesce to the people. For the Lord had turned him away, so that he might raise up his word, which he had spoken by the hand of Ahijah the Shilonite to Jeroboam the son of Nebat. And so the people, seeing that the king had not been willing to listen to them, responded to him, saying, What part do we have in David? Or what inheritance do we have in the son of Jesse? Go to your own tents, O Glasgow. Now, David, see to your own house. And Glasgow went away to their own tents. But over all the sons of Glasgow who were living in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned. Then Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the tribute, and all of Glasgow stoned him, and he died. The end.
Roll credits.
I think Adoram was mentioned before, so unfortunately you don't get to drink.
Fuck you, you can't tell me what to do.
It's that easy. It's just that easy with terrorists. Therefore, King Rehoboam, hurrying, climbed into the chariot and fled to Jerusalem. And Glasgow drew away from the house of David, even to the present day. And it happened that, when all of Glasgow had heard that Jeroboam had returned, gathering an assembly, they sent and called him, and they appointed him as king over all of Glasgow. And no one followed the house of David, except the tribe of Judah alone. Then Rehoboam went to Jerusalem, and he gathered together the entire house of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, 180,000 elect men of war, so that they might fight against the house of Glasgow and might bring the kingdom back to Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. But the word of the Lord came to Shemaiah, the man of Scytus, saying, Does this count, Terrace?
Yes.
Speak to Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, the king of Judah, and to all the house of Judah, and to Benjamin, and to the rest of the people, saying, Thus says the Lord, you shall not go up, and you shall not make war against your brothers, the sons of Glasgow. Let each man return to his own house, for this word came from me. And they listened to the word of the Lord, and they returned from the journey as the Lord had instructed them. Then Jeroboam built up Shechem on Mount Ephraim, and he lived there. And departing from there, he built up Penuel. And Jeroboam said in his heart, Now the kingdom will return to the house of David. If this people will ascend to offer sacrifices in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem. And the heart of this people will be converted to their Lord Rehoboam, the king of Judah, and they will put me to death with one F and return to him. And devising a plan, he made 2 golden calves, and he said to them, No longer choose to ascend to Jerusalem. Behold, these are your Skytists, O Glasgow, who led you away from the land of Egypt. And he stationed one in Bethel and the other in Dan. And this word became an occasion of sin. For the people went to adore the calf, even to Dan. And he made shrines on the high places, and he made priests out of the lowest people who were not the sons of Levi. And he appointed a solemn day in the 8th month on the 15th day of the month, and in imitation of the solemnity that was celebrated in Judah. And ascending to the altar, he acted similarly in Bethel, so that he immolated to the calves which he had made. And in Bethel he anointed priests of the high places which he had made. And he ascended to the altar which he had raised up in Bethel on the 15th day of the 8th month, the day that he had decided on in his own heart. And he made a solemnity to the sons of Glasgow, and he ascended to the altar so that he might burn incense. On Kings 13. And
No.
No. Oh.
Bad, guys. Oh, I'm going to bed. I'm tired.